Beverly, Alaska seems to be the sort of it destination this coming season. Lots of capacity, lots of cruise ships. Why should the retailers sell Regent?
Well, it's true. There are many choices up there. Obviously, when you find a destination that's as hot as Alaska, maybe not in terms of temperature, but in terms of demand, although it's hotter there than it is here sometimes. It is, I think, obviously, every cruise line is going to gravitate toward that destination, especially during the summertime. Regent has been there for many years, and as every year we're there, we've really tried to work and improve our program and give people what they want. And the buzzword these days really is experience. And of course, if you can give them the most luxurious experience and the most inclusive experience, every luxury included, then it adds up to a really winning formula. The size of our ships, of course, makes it attractive. Number one, accessibility to the ports of call. Being able to get up close and personal with the glaciers. When you're on a ship of a few hundred people versus a few thousand, it does make a big difference.
I bet it does.
Not only just in the ports, but getting on and off. I mean, I've been there where I've seen people on larger ships looking down at our guests with envy as they scoot on and off in 10 minutes and they're waiting forever. So right. It does make a difference, certainly the size. What people don't think about, and probably our agent partners haven't thought about too, is the fact that our rotation typically is to have a Wednesday departure midweek, which is unusual, but we did that deliberately because it means we're not vying for the same docking space with the mega ships.
Brilliant.
So although I'm not going to say that we're the only ship in town on the day, we're certainly not there with as many, which makes for a more stress-free experience for our guests. So,
everything is thought out in such a way as to create the best experience possible for your guests. I'm just curious about something in brackets here before we move into some of the lovely features that you have to offer. Retailers or customers, whichever distribution we're looking at, who are familiar with Regent, who are Regent aficionados, they're loyal, just like I'm sure you have trade partners who tend to focus more on Regent. They know what they're going to expect, so they're obviously going to choose Regent for Alaska or any other destination. For the trade partners who are less familiar with Regent, I mean, you've answered it to some degree, but I'm just curious, how do you switch them? What do you tell them specifically about Regent?
Well, I think there's several things to focus on. Certainly the ship size is going to be very appealing to the client who is perhaps done with the bigger ship. So the Seven Seas Mariner at 700 guests is lovely. The intimacy, the Wednesday departure is also valid, but I think what will really appeal to them beyond the quality is the totally inclusive nature of it. And especially related to Alaska because the excursions are such a critical part of the experience. Agents talk to me and clients and they say, I'm just going to the Caribbean, I don't need excursions, I'm just going to get off and buy the t-shirt. Well, in Alaska you can't do that because to be a sourdough, as they call it, a true Alaskan, you have to do things. You have to, see the lumberjack show, gold panning, go to a salmon bake, tromp on the glaciers, see the Iditarod dogs. So you cannot say that you've done Alaska unless you've done these things.
So
and that adds
true.
up. So the fact that Regent does include a massive selection of excursions, it makes the value proposition really tremendous. And of course the quality is amazing.
And you're seeing it in luxury, of course, which when you're in such a magical place, which I understand is one of your favorite destinations.
It absolutely is. And I think I could go back there every year. I mean, I've probably been to Alaska 8 or 9 times in my life cruising, and every single time I go, I see something different.
Right.
And whether it's a 90-degree day, which it can be in the summer, it can be hotter than it is here, or whether it's one of those wonderful misty days where the ice is sort of magically appearing through the clouds and a whale breaches in front of the ship. I mean, these are all sort of goosebump moments that you never know when they're going to happen. There's that element of surprise in Alaska, and so it reveals itself to you, and it's a very different experience than any other destination. It's not a different culture in terms of language and food necessarily, but the people are so wonderful.
Yes, they are. They're incredibly friendly.
And actually, for the girls, if you know this, there are way more men in Alaska than there are women, so it's a good place to go apparently if you're hunting.
So, okay, we digress.
We digress.
Tell me about some of the fabulous inclusions and some of the great educational programs that you want the retailers to know about.
Absolutely, and the one thing I think to think about is, when people come on a cruise, they also look for opportunities to learn. Perhaps if they're newly retired, they haven't had a chance to do a lot of learning because they've been so busy. So they come on a cruise and they're looking for us to educate them. And then, of course, to further enrich the experience, we bring locals on board so they can share some of their talent, some of their stories, their history, their folklore with our guests to further bring the Alaska experience to life.
Well.
Yeah, there's some really colorful ones. Yeah, especially the piano player from the pub in Juneau. It does the sing-along. And then we have another sort of folklore storyteller and even an Iditarod busher. And if you're lucky, you might even meet one of the husky dogs on board. So that's kind of a fun thing. So
yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
That would do it just for me.
Yeah, I think a lot of people love that. And then, of course, you've got the fabulous cuisine that also has an Alaskan element to it. The Alaskan king crab to die for. And, of course, the other things. So
the salmon.
Oh, the salmon for sure.
Outdoor bake, right?
Salmon bake, yes, you can do that. That's included as well.
Okay, and now let's talk about pricing and the inclusiveness of the air, because I always find that confusing. How do you add it all up and figure out that this is really good value?
Yes, and I know we've had several conversations about this before, and other learnomatics we've done, or conversations that have, and our agent partners think of finally realizing that value is really what we're all about. That a luxury product seems more expensive, higher price, but when you really dissect it, peel back the onion, it's because it includes more. And that again is still the case in Alaska. The Alaskan cruise prices seem higher than perhaps some other products. But really, when you look at it, you're actually traveling a long way to get there. It's a heck of a long way, especially from the east. If you're in the east, you could get to Europe in less time than you can fly to Anchorage. So think of it in terms of, you do have that big hefty air ticket in there that we do include. And right now we have a promotion for the earlier part of the season where we're actually including a first class air ticket instead of economy. Now in Canada, that probably will equate to business class, or whatever the highest class of service will be available.
Good with that.
And that's on our regular Canadian dollar price sailings. And then every so often we get Canadian at par, which is particularly interesting because that equates to over 30% off. Now I can't give you first class air with that, but for some people they're happy with economy, and that 30% savings with Canadian at par makes it very, very attractive.
You make a really good point that if you're going to go to Alaska, whether you're coming from the east or anywhere that you're coming from, you gotta really go to Alaska. You can't just stay on the ship and wave to the icebergs. I mean, it's a whole experience.
It is.
And the more you take advantage of it, the better your experience will be. And that would include pre and post ops, I imagine?
Absolutely. I mean, I do encourage people, because it's funny, when people say to me, well, what's the best part about Alaska? The wildlife is one part, the marine life is another, the glaciers is another, and unfortunately the bears and the moose don't come to you on the ship, so you have to go to them. So that's really where the pre or post options come in. So taking advantage of our 4-night Denali Park stays really is important, and stretching your trip out more than just a week. So if you have a week on the ship, 4 nights on the land, then at least you will give yourself the whole experience, I think, rather than just a part of it. Quite often people just do the cruise and then say, oh, I'm going to have to go back now and do the rest.
Yeah, because it's never
It's an investment trip. It is an investment, and you have to think about it in those terms.
But for boomers who, they want experiences much more than they want to buy a new car. They don't need a new car. They don't need a new stereo. People don't buy stereos anyway.
Oh, that's true. And actually, it's funny, you're talking about boomers. Obviously, that definitely is an amazing market for us now. It would be what I'd be focusing on if I was on the retail side. But that boomer generation, especially the ones with grandchildren, they're looking to create memories, these multi-generational trips. And that is particularly where you might see more families on Regent, perhaps, than in other destinations. So we have this amazing Club Mariner Kids program that will also educate them, brings into their program not just fun and games, but some education about the marine life, about the geography.
The kids love that, though.
They do. And I mean, can you imagine for a grandparent, standing on the deck with their grandchild, watching a whale breach or watching a glacier calf? I mean, these chunks of ice that are as big as your house falling off the face of the glacier. I mean, these are memories that just really make it. So it's the old, what do they call them, ski vacations, spending the kids' inheritance. Take the kids with you and create the memory rather than, sort of showing them a picture. So we get a lot of that on Regent too. Because the grandparents want the quality, so they want to bring their family along.
Yeah, and spoil the kids, why not?
And hopefully they'll become Regent cruisers when they get older.
Exactly.
That's what we want.
Pass it down through generations.
That's right.
Thank you for coming in and telling us about it.
No, it's my pleasure.
It's one
Thank
of
you.
my favorite topics, so we can talk
Amazing.
about ice all day long.
We could.